All right, let's talk about the wild womb and the womb shadow and emotional release. So, the womb dance is a body of work and it takes us through a whole journey with the female body. It's based in women's anatomy and energy anatomy, the subtle body, but it works specifically with the anatomy of the pelvic floor and really awakening and circulating the energy there. In that, there is health. In that, what we call Shakti in the tantric traditions, uh, the, the Shakti is that feminine life force, creative life force in the base of a woman's body. So when we begin womb dance, we learn to circle and we learn to undulate and we learn to flow and shimmy. And these are ways, the ancient women's dances that came to be called belly dance in more modern times, can help a woman with vitality and health and wellness. And she starts to feel and open her senses and feel her sensual self come to life. This is a very big healing in modern women who many feel shut down, numb, cut off from that life force energy. So in these modules, we incrementally work toward this. Now, in my intro courses, we just have a little taste. In the longer retreats, we can do deeper dives and longer and more specific practices. But having a taste it can still go very deep. Having a taste of just moving your hips and undulating and working with the principles of womb dance can start to really open up the etheric field, the physical body, along with the energy body, along with the inner energy body, the Shakti life force. So it happens quick. It happens very quick. A woman moves her hips and suddenly she becomes aware of tension, emotions, memories that have been held here in the hips. As modern women, we often cut ourselves off from this part of our body. We can function really well from the heart up in our culture. Our culture values the brain. You have to have some connection to your heart to be kind and compassionate and somewhat of a good communicator, but you can live with a frozen heart too in our culture, right? It doesn't demand a lot of you. If you can't use your mind, that's where you're have some problems in our culture. In other cultures, they really value spiritual intelligence, emotional intelligence, feminine intelligence. So we are helping modern women to experience that as well, to understand that their tender heart, their compassionate heart is valuable. Their personal power, this chakra, solar plexus chakra, is valuable. Their Shakti life force, excuse me, their Shakti life force and that pelvic floor, that energy in the pelvic floor that generates that intuition, feminine creativity is valuable. It's powerful. So the more we move, the more we start to have circulation in these areas where emotions and pain or grief from these experiences we might have had gets locked up. If we're dancing and we get attacked in that moment, or we get raped or shamed, suddenly we don't want to move our hips, and there's the stuckness there. It's like, nope. Our mind makes the decision and the body listens, or the body freezes in fear and the brain allows it and doesn't go back to check in or bring circulation. So I get a lot of women who can't move their hips, who can't differentiate hips from ribs, and It just takes a while to unwind the emotional contraction in the body and to heal it. Now, what I've discovered with Wombdance, uh, belly dance, I used to practice belly dance. Belly dance is wonderful and fun, but when you do the belly dance movements with a specific purpose and intention and sacred container, it does a whole different thing. It puts us in touch with what needs to be healed and opened in our bodies, and we can start to feel it. And we want to welcome those. In the Wombdance, in the dance quests that we do, we welcome emotion. We welcome the experiences, the shadow, the negative self-talk. We want to know all about it, because I believe, and many of my colleagues believe, that once that shows itself, then we can work with it. It interrupts the stuckness, the frozenness, and we can start to dance with it. So, the wild womb, when we rewild our womb, she becomes open and available to feel what there is to feel, and she is connected to the elemental forces. So we say wild womb, wild woman is connected to these forces of nature, and these forces of nature are what's going to help her to continue to clear and release her womb, her heart, her body of these energies and contraction. Now, the Wombdance module goes into the ballet of the I Love You, where we dance our story over and over again to retell the story, to recapitulate the story. Once we have these stories from the Wombdance and we've worked with releasing the emotions, it's quite amazing. Then we can start to rewrite the story. But I do not suggest that you try to rewrite your story before you feel the emotions. That tends to turn into spiritual bypassing, and that really does no good for anybody. Maybe you look mature and together for a moment, but I assure you, eventually you crash and burn. You must tend to things directly, and putting a Band-Aid on something might work for a moment, but trying to use positive talk to talk yourself out of the emotions you're feeling doesn't work. We work with affirmations, and that's something different because it's partnered with the movement, the mudras, the intentionality, the acceptance, the honoring, the allowance for emotion. This is really important. So you can't go from being raped to, it's all good, I know it was meant to be. I mean, maybe you can. You can tell when someone has kind of lifted up and out of feeling the base of their body and is telling the story from the heart and head, where they just like, it's okay, it doesn't matter, I just moving on. And the thing is, the spiritual bypassing, the only reason it doesn't work is that usually you must cut yourself off, usually from the wild, primal, instinctual part of ourselves, which is this, underneath the solar plexus and down. Now, that is a problem because the first and second chakras are all about belonging on earth, connecting with sensuality, coming home to the body. So if you're half in and half out and dangling, it's a harder life. I've been there. I've done that. So the wild womb is an empowered womb that's empowered with the Shakti life force of the feminine, with the power of the elements, so she can really do her rebirthing. And when we start to experience the womb shadows, so let's not get confused. The dark mother The dark fertile womb. This is the fertile ground of the darkness of the womb, where we get to gestate and rest. And sometimes we create womb sanctuaries where we rest. And darkness in the women's mystery traditions is considered nurturing. The shadow is when something is standing in front of the light and it casts a shadow. That is what the shadow we call the issues, the experiences, the emotions that are the negative experiences that are shutting you down or making you feel numb, or the horrible memories that get activated. The womb shadows are the shadows of your sexual trauma or abuse. And when we release one of those experiences, one of those emotions, this is what we discussed in my demonstration class, where we titrate, take one thing at a time, and use the power of the elements to move through us. I often work in Wombdance with the squat. The squat from the beginning, the basics of the Wombdance work is healing for the pelvic floor, but it becomes a way of birthing those womb shadows out, and then we give them back to the light, to our guides, to our angels. And so we become a vessel for moving things through. We gestate and create life and can birth it, and that's a wonderful thing. We can also release our shadows and bring them back to the light. Now that's a ritual movement practice. Is it gone forever? We don't know. Some people experience that if they're, ripe and ready for that experience. A ritual dance, giving that back to the light, can really be transformational. Other people, it can be, like a little checkbox. It's like you have all these, all these experiences that bring a multitude of rewiring in many places. So you might release a little piece of the contraction in that, and then the more you do it, the more freedom you feel, the more you start to live more free and start to circulate more fully, and the next time it goes a little deeper. So it's not to say if you do it and it's still there, it doesn't work. It means it's peeling away a layer. Now, if you've done a lot of layers and you come to this work and you do it and it's powerful and you're like, wow, it worked. So it working has a different concept, right? Depending on where you are on your path. In the yogic traditions, we believe awakening can happen in a second. Just wake up. But usually a soul, we come to earth to struggle a little bit, to dive into the underworld in these experiences, to collect a great many experiences to struggle with, to awaken and open and rise up through. So as we release the womb shadows, our wild womb strengthens. The empowerment that we draw back from those experiences, those traumatic experiences, rewilds us. It strengthens us. It brings us more wisdom and more power. Now, we can be, we could be using that power for good or for bad. We want to make sure that through the womb dances, that this experience of the release happens from a place of love and compassion and faith and trust, and that you don't use your breath or your feminine power for any kind of dark magic, because the feminine has a very powerful and potent capacity. And this is why many cultures, many spiritual cultures, don't allow women into temples when they're bleeding or into sweat lodges. They believe that women are having their own purification with their blood, but they also are so powerful in that time, in that blood, or in holding the blood in menopause, that you shift the energies of the ceremony. I've never, well, that's another conversation. I can discuss that a little bit. There is something that happens to a woman when she's in her deep fertile moment and she is bleeding, and that doesn't compel her to weave in. Part of being a ceremonialist is you're weaving the worlds and you're getting everybody woven together energetically. And it is true that a woman on her blood moon cycle or bleeding, or a menopausal woman who's in her empowerment, there are these moments in a woman's cycle that she will not merge with that. She could be that link that just kind of creates a wobble in the field. And that's not bad or good. That's just like, she doesn't need that then. And those people in there might be needing the ceremony, and she doesn't. She has her own ceremony going on, and it's almost like the two ceremonies just don't gel. Now, sometimes they do gel. When we create a women's red tent, yes, bring in the bleeding women. Bring in the bleeding women, because that is a place where we want that power, we want that energy, and we can connect with together in that energy source, in that power. So that's a little digression, but I think it's important to say. So wild womb and womb shadow work together and can serve and support and feed each other. And the emotional release in a woman's body usually is a relationship between the womb and the heart, and the solar plexus is what is served by the release, because a woman's power or emotional contraction tends to shrink the space for the solar plexus. So when the womb expands and the heart opens, this solar plexus area where her personal power lives is wide open. So when we do the big full dancing squat, we're coming up and down, and we're really pumping that space. We're opening the hips and we're asking the heart to widen. And you do that by contracting it and opening it. The same things with the hips, and really, and the biggest key to emotional release is really allowing the voice in a titrated way. Screaming at the very highest point of the scream of your lungs, of the highest pitch. There's a place for it, but it's a very specific and I don't want to shame or put anyone down for doing that. So if you need to do that, do it. But it can shatter your nervous system and others more than repair it. So the sounds that we want to try to be working with is guttural. It's like that's why we do the growl, the howl, the many times in our experience of the shadow experiences as a woman, our voice can freeze. So the connection between the throat and the pelvic floor, very powerful, very essential for this emotional release, this healing. So remember the word titration. It's very powerful. I say it a lot, but it's just little bit. We don't want to overstimulate the nervous system. We're trying to heal it. And we're the dance and the womb becoming our healer, awakening that inner healer through the dance. So sometimes dance looks so slow, it almost doesn't look like you're moving at all, but that kind of movement can unwind experiences and shadows and trauma in the body, and it can start to lull the nervous system. So remember, these dance forms are prayers, they're healing, they're expression, So it doesn't matter if it looks good or not, but how does it feel to move your shoulder so slow? To let your tongue come out with your hand. To reconnect the tongue. The tongue is directly connected down into the pelvis, down into the yoni. That sucking motion of the thumb can draw up on the pelvic floor. The soft palate in the back of the throat is amazing for the pelvis, the digestion. It's all interconnected, and that's why Wombdance and taking it slow, speeding it up, shimmying, doing whatever we got to take to rewild the intelligence of the womb. All right, that is just a little lecture on the power of Wombdance, and I wanted to close this module with these teachings, and I hope that was helpful. In my Wombdance program, we go into deeper and longer practices, and that's for when you're really committed and want to take the journey, either online or in a retreat. And that does require more commitment to the process for our own good, you know. But I think you've received a lot here to run with and play with, and just awaken and practice the intelligence, the primal intelligence, the wild intelligence of your feminine body and your womb center. So thank you. It's been a joy to share these bits and pieces with you. We actually went a lot deeper than I thought we would on trying to keep it short. So I think you got a whole lot here, and we're going to take this now and bring it into the ballet of the I Love You, which is starting to play with the stories, embody our stories and archetypes. That's really fun. All right, thank you for joining me in Wombdance, and I hope you will consider down the road doing a deeper dive in the Wombdance practices and healing methods. If you want to do an online womb healing, or want to do private sessions online and discuss mentorship with womb healing, Wombdance, do let me know. I am putting together a teacher training for spring of 2024. I want to get more women teaching this. So that's getting ready for you. We'll see you soon.